Welcome everyone to another episode of Money in the Bank with Frank. Happy Valentine's Day. We've had an amazing ripping market. We've got crypto coming back. We've got all sorts of topics going on, and the first of these is it's tax time. Let's go ahead and get into it after we go through these following messages.
And
Hey, guess what? It's tax time. Today in the producer's chair, we've got Mark as someone to bounce some ideas off of. I've got a couple of crypto-related questions and comments today that I'd love to get some help with. So thanks for sitting in on this one, Mark.
yeah, no problem.
Great. So I don't know if you guys know this, but taxes are complicated. I figure we could start breaking down some of the process into some steps. As of February, obviously, the IRS officially kicked off the 2024 season, and there's unbelievable free tax software out there now that you can use and you can utilize yourself. And a lot of the tax forms have been made user friendly. So if you go into, not promoting, they're not clients or they're not partners, but if they want to be, feel free to reach out to us at the merge. But if you take a look at TurboTax, you could actually use their software. And if you actually have those W-2s and you just type in like this control number or whatever, in like box, whatever, it'll pull in all the data. Now that's good and bad, right? Because that means that, well, guess what? They have the info. So you can't get away from it. That makes it very critical that you get all of your tax forms from all of your vendors, whether it's brokerage firms or your banks or crypto broker dealers that may or may not be sending out forms. But if they do generate that form and you don't disclose it, they will see it because everything is electronic now. So you need to make sure that you put that stuff in there, give it to your accountant. If you don't use an accountant, if you do it yourself, make sure you put it all in there. If there's any question at all, are they going to send me a form? Did they send me a form? Call and find out. Number one. And number two, if they don't send you a form, but you feel that you might need to pay taxes on it, err on the side of the tax man. Pay the taxes, and then, in the future, you can always refile when there's more guidance and get that money back. And you can do that in perpetuity. So, keep track of that, keep your records, and let's start there. Now, I had a very interesting phone call today. I started this recording a little late because I got stuck on the phone for an additional 30 minutes with a client, and this is going to happen all the way through tax time. We were trying to figure out where to send a check to make sure that she funds her retirement account. And all of these things are critical. You need to make sure that you make out your contributions by the tax filing deadline, including extensions. And this is the busiest, the earliest in the year that I've ever been when people call me to ask me questions about their taxes and starts to make me wonder, are people so strapped that they're counting on this tax return? They're counting on this refund to catch up. I know I talked to you, Mark, a little earlier, and you said the same thing. It's like, you just don't want to sell the stuff that you have because it's going up. Now, I get that too. And I would like to believe that that's the case, but I happen to know that that's not in the case of some of my investors because we have not been fully tilted into crypto. So what's going on out there? I'm really curious to hear from anyone out there watching. Is inflation now at a good, comfortable spot for you? I spoke to a different client this morning who told me that while, yeah, they do see that food and booze and stuff in New York City has kind of leveled out, it doesn't mean that it's comfortable. Like, his rent has gone up to a precipitous level that he's not comfortable. The same thing with food. He's like, 6 wings cost him $13. 6 wings cost $13. I see it. I see it at the store. I go to the store. You get the grocery store sushi, and it's $11.99. What happened to grocery store sushi, right?
Well, to me, what's super interesting is New York City, the food prices are equivalent or sometimes lesser than where what we have here in the DFW Metroplex, but the inflation is insane. I wouldn't even call it inflation. The increases are insane when it comes to the rent.
Yeah,
And
the shelter costs are totally different there than they are here, right? And so we have more cushion here because we didn't have that ridiculous real estate boom that everyone else had. Now we're starting to have it, or we started to have it at the tail end when the interest rates were going up, but we still pay tremendously or, precipitously less than people on the coast in California and New York. So they're already hurting from their shelter costs. You throw in food, which, as you said, and as I've mentioned several times here on the show, that I pay at least as much here for a meal than I did in New York. And the food's worse and the service is worse. So what accounts for that? Well, I think it's because we have the cushion of everything else. Everything else is cheaper here. And so we feel we can afford it. But again, we get to the point of right now during tax time, I have people calling me, asking me questions about taxes for their tax forms because they want to file their returns so that they can get their money back. And again, it's their money back, but like before it was like, hey, let's use that money on something else. Are you using it just to catch up? That's unsustainable, right?
I mean, to speak for like a lot of
Please.
middle America, yeah, they look forward to that return to catch up. Like that's how I know at least like I'm pretty sure my family had been for the first like 20 years of my life, probably even now and then here and again. I know for sure friends, they need that check, especially people who don't understand how it works, how the refund works. And they're like I told you about my situation, I'm getting no refund, which I'm kind of happy about because it was perfect. My withholdings were perfect, which
Efficient,
is, yeah,
efficient, right?
yeah. But if I didn't know a little more, if wasn't as financially educated, which I'm on the lower end of the spectrum still,
We're working on
you
it.
know,
We're working on it.
yeah. But just to speak for them, like if your investors are expecting that, or not your investor, your clients are expecting that, I can't imagine someone who doesn't think about getting a financial advisor.
Yeah. So Mark, tell me your story. What's going on with you? You said that you're also.
So of course, with my situation, my income tax situation is a little different than it would be on a normal year. So I was surprised how, because I'm in a much lower income tax bracket than I would be. Like I'm in the era where I was getting like in the Bush era, I was getting like $10,000 back from all the earned income tax credits and child credits, and I think I got like $300 back. So just that change was like I was expecting a whole lot more. I guess tax cuts ain't what they used to be, but yeah, for in terms of what I'm using it for, I prefer to have the free cash flow because I do have savings. I'm not hurting in that respect, but I don't want to dip into something that's a accelerating asset right now. If it was down, I wouldn't want to dip into it either, honestly. Like
Right.
you don't want to sell at the bottom.
Situation,
Yeah.
right? No one's ever happy. If it's a raging bull market, you don't want to pull your money out. And if the market gets hit and you've got, then it's your problem too, right?
Right,
You don't
yeah.
want to sell it either.
if it's like peaked out or flat, I guess I'd probably be happy with it. But right now it's moving, so.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. So what do we need to know about the child tax credit? You mentioned about it, right? So it's a tax break. You could be eligible for up to $2,000 per child. Now, the rules around which kids qualify and how much money you can get refunded can be confusing.
Yes.
Thank the Lord we have ChatGPT to figure it out for you, right? Sure, they're not your tax advisor, but So it's really important to understand that many people with a regular W-2 job with no additional income coming in, it's going to be fairly easy to do it yourself now. The software is there, the technology is there. If you have any wrinkles whatsoever, huge fan of advice, huge fan of help from an accountant. We have a number of resources that we work with, so if you guys are looking for one, let me know. The hardest thing that I've had to find was bookkeeping. Accountants don't want to do bookkeeping.
No.
They like to do accounting, right? They don't like to do bookkeeping. No one likes to key in those numbers. I can assure you, I don't like to key in those numbers either. But I know that they're important. And for a small business owner, they're critical. You need to have a good bookkeeper. You have to have a good relationship with whoever's doing your bookkeeping when you're a small business owner, because those are the critical rails that keep you from going to prison. Tax avoidance, tax evasion, anything like that. You need your books to be bulletproof. So if you're not keeping them yourself, or if you're just like, writing it down in a ledger, you don't have any reporting, you're the guy that the IRS with their 85,000 new employees is coming after. So be sure you have good accounting and keep track of everything, because they do. And it's also important to note that if you actually work for a company that may not be in business anymore, has no HR department, or they don't exist anymore, they may still be filing tax returns and filing, tax forms and things on you. So reach out to that restaurant, that service establishment that may not be in existence anymore. Try to figure out if they're going to try to do that to you, because if they report and then you don't, you could be in trouble as well. And that happened this morning. I was talking to one of my clients who sent me his W-2 to look at, and I said, "Well, what about that other company that you worked at?" And he was like, "Oh, I forgot about them." Well, I mean, I did make money from them, and they're not in existence anymore. I was like, "Check. You got to call and find out," because if they declare it, like you, Sohail, he actually is on the healthcare exchange. And if you don't report that and the healthcare exchange sees that you've made more money than you reported, you're going to owe that money back, right? Sohail, isn't that kind of what happened to you?
That's right. Yep. I got a couple raises last year, and it doesn't match up with what I reported, which I knew would happen. So I had that money saved.
But you had the money saved. See? Good for you.
On the topic of bookkeeping, I don't know. I know it doesn't exist anymore. So if you know of some good alternatives, it would be. I used to use this thing called Mint. Mm-hmm. You know what that? Or just
they used to aggregate everything into one folder. Yeah.
I think they end of lifed it last year. I got some notice from them that says that it's not going to be around much longer, I think. But
it's a shame too. That was a really good service, but I just don't know that they figured out a way to monetize it good enough, I guess.
Probably,
because it was a lot of different platforms used them to aggregate all the data. So if I had a client that had multiple accounts at different places, but I wasn't managing it all, they would allow me to be able to pull that data in, and I'd be able to see where their assets were outside of management. And that's really great. I'm curious to see what's going to happen with that database, because that's, that was a powerful tool for a lot of different people.
I use Mint. I didn't know this, but yeah, they're saying they're switching over to Credit Karma. It is an Intuit platform, but I guess Credit Karma will have that.
Then they'll figure out how to monetize it. All right, here we go. Yeah. So Mint was really good. There's also Rocket Money is a decent service out there, and it, you link your credit cards and your bank accounts, and it'll tell you when there's a pending charge, when charges are coming. I don't see it integrating well with Intuit though. It doesn't pull in that data, because I've actually tried to qualify and put different codes on Rocket Money, and then whenever I use QuickBooks, it doesn't pull it in. So you got to figure out which tech you want to use. As a small business owner and user, I found it to be really helpful, Rocket Money to be really helpful, because it helps me figure out and pisses me off when I see the reoccurring payment that I was like, wait, why do I have that? So that was really handy, really helpful. But if you are kind of frugal, it might irritate you to a different degree. So that's what I have on that part of it. Forms, and more tax forms. Did you know the IRS provides 2,854 different tax forms on its website?
Seems like a lot.
Yeah. So review your tax credits and deductions. This year, the standard deduction for 2023 was $13,850 for single filers and married filing separately, $27,700 for those married filing jointly, $20,800 for heads of household, and it's claimed on tax forms filed by April 2024, $13,850 for single filers. So what does that mean? So that means that if you itemize your deductions and they're less than those numbers, if as a individual single filer, if you don't spend more than $13,850 on your itemized deductions, just take the credit and walk away, right? Just file the return. If you do spend more than that amount of money, 13,850 for single and 27,700 for married filing jointly. If you spend more money than that, whether it's from state and local taxes, from other itemized deductions, then you're going to want to itemize. And if you don't know how to do it, ask your bookkeeper, ask your accountant, and they will help you with that calculation. How about tax refunds? Once you've finished your tax return and you've actually filed it, the IRS makes it easy to check and see where that refund is at the process. And you can literally go to the IRS's website, irs.gov. Where's my refund? Where's my money? Social Security. Here's a fun one. Paid by the government. Paid into it. It was part of your taxes. Do you have to pay taxes on it whenever you receive Social Security, Mark?
Don't you?
Yeah, of course you do. Yeah,
All income
you
has
do.
to be taxed, right?
To some degree, yeah. Social Security benefits may be taxable. Here's the fun part. If 1/2 of your Social Security benefits plus all of your other income is greater than the base amount of your filing status, then you have to pay taxes. What does that mean? It means if you make,
If you've profited, essentially.
you're going to pay taxes. Right. So, yeah. So again, if you don't know the answer to that, call up Social Security Administration. They'll help you with that. Also, talk to your tax advisor.
I got a edge case tax question that comes from inside the building here.
Yeah.
Anonymous asks, if I get paid my income from my company in crypto, do I pay taxes on that?
Yes. The income is still the income. So if you know the monetary value of that at the time that you're paid it, you're going to pay taxes on that gross amount. That's be my opinion.
Right.
Whatever that has grown to, and if you don't sell it, then you fall into that
So
capital gain situation, right? So again, you got paid in that money, in that currency, you're going to have to pay income tax on it. Whether or not you make any money on the sale of that asset, that token currency, the difference between what you actually received that you pay tax on versus what you sell it for is going to be considered capital gain, whether it's long or short term. Depends on how long you hold it. Also, we know that crypto laws are a little different. So I don't remember if they're traded as commodities. So there's definitely different tax situations. I know, like, if you're trading commodities, there's a certain amount that's considered long-term, some portion is short-term regardless. So again, these are things that you have to check with a tax advisor or ChatGPT.
Yes. That was it got into like 4 questions deep when I was in this, and I was like, I got part of the way you did. You got more detail than I did. And he's like, well, what about this? And then what about that? I'm like, sounds like a great question for a tax attorney.
Well, that's the thing is, like, I still think that if you feel, again, if you're doing it in a way that is transparent and you're trying to do it right, that I think you have a much better chance of being able to talk to some auditor in the future if they come to you and say, hey, well, why didn't you declare it at all? Well, that's pretty easy. It's not going to look good for you. But if you actually pay some taxes on it and you say, look, there's no guidance, I couldn't find anything, I just paid some taxes, it's better than nothing, right? I can't even tell you the number of times I've talked to people for the IRS for my clients, and even gone through an audit that took 12 years with a client. And so you get, not that anyone should not worry about the IRS, but talking to them as individuals, they're just people and they just want to negotiate. They just have the power of the government behind them, but they're still people. So you can talk to them, and as long as you can justify your position, they tend to work with you. So just try. I would say that if you have any, crypto tax questions, I would be really interested to find out who you're using for your accountant and your attorney to talk about those types of things, because I think that's going to be an area that will get much more popular. And I know that while Rick Edelman believes in that accreditation, I wonder how many attorneys and accountants have that experience to be able to answer those questions. And now that it's an ETF, you're going to see people that are trading the underlying as well as the actual ETF. And so they're going to have to learn about this pretty soon, pretty quick. So, if anyone has any more information on that, please reach out and let us know.
The one guy I've trusted in Dallas for crypto tax law and crypto tax information is Jason Tyra, Tyra. Just Google him.
Yeah.
And he's been in this almost as long as I have. And the best, like the guidance that helps you figure out how to do your crypto taxes, typically that comes out of his mouth, is all the ways that gold can be taxed are the ways that Bitcoin can be taxed. So if you don't have a question answered and you're just trying to like Google it, just put the word gold in front of instead of Bitcoin into Google, and it'll, if you can find the use case, it'll probably apply to your. But then if you're in doubt,
Yeah.
Okay,
he
cool.
takes your
Because
money
I've been
too.
getting paid in gold, so I don't know if you know that, but that's
Doubloons.
part of my contract. Yep.
Yeah, cool.
That's a heavy backpack that you got.
Now you know why.
Do you get like does Ryan just shave off a little piece of a flake of gold from
Yeah,
a
it's
bar
like-
every couple of weeks? Or-
A flake every year. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Well, that was our tax lesson for
Well,
today.
I had a question about
Yeah.
like donations, charitable contributions, and stuff. Could you touch on that?
Yeah, so it's a whole industry, right? So you've got religions, you've got good causes, you've got all sorts of different ways that people can qualify as a charity or a charitable organization, whether it's a foundation or a charitable organization. Make sure that you check with one of the online platforms to make sure that the charity that you are donating to is indeed a 501c3 with the IRS, because if they're not, you do not get to take the deduction. And if you take the deduction and they find out that it wasn't a charity, they're going to get that money back. They're going to tax you on that. So what happens is you've got a lot of different, I'm just giving you a situation, random situation. You work for a company goes public, you score and you make a bunch of money in the stock. A lot of times you can actually donate that appreciated stock directly to a charity. So let's say you donate 100 shares of Snowflake to XYZ charity that's a legitimate 501c3 charity. You get the full benefit of the total amount that you donated as a deduction on your tax return as a donation, which is great. And you see that across churches, again, across religious institutions, all sorts of institutions. It's big business, huge business. There's like companies that will actually match your charitable funds as well. But there is a tax form that you will get from that charitable institution, which tells you what the actual value is that you're supposed to contribute. So if you go to a silent auction, you go to one of these black tie events and you donate $25,000 to purchase 2 tickets to Africa for some safari, there's going to be a taxable value that's over and above the fair market value of that trip. And that's what you can deduct. You can't deduct the $25,000, the full amount that you actually paid for that trip, because you're getting something for it. What you can get a deduction on is the amount that's over and above that. So there's a lot of little tricky things when it comes to charity. You go and you think that if you're getting something for it, you're not getting 100% of the deduction. And if you do that, you may get away with it. But it's not right. You're probably going to get caught eventually. So don't do that. Don't do that. Did that answer your question on charity, or do you have anything deeper?
It was Sohail's question, I think.
No, yeah. I mean, that definite. It's not my situation. I was more talking about bags of clothes I gave to Goodwill, but
Well, yeah, the good news of that, yeah, absolutely. And those are really critical. We have that, that was one of the things that we talked about all the time whenever I had a tax practice. I had a business partner who was an attorney that did tax. And he would say, just bring in your donations, bring in your receipts, and we'll work with it. And the idea is that, again, there is value in those donations, and you can take that off against your deductions should you, again, itemize. So we talked about itemizing. If you don't itemize enough that beats the standard deduction, then don't bother. But if you are itemizing and you do donate those bags of donations, then yeah, take the receipt, give it to your attorney or your accountant, and have them itemize it. It's absolutely something that everyone should do if you're itemizing.
I mean, even President Clinton famously got $2 back for his used underwear. Remember that?
No, that's great.
It was like a big thing, like in one of his re-election campaigns. He got, because he released his tax returns, and like all the talk show hosts, Rush Limbaugh at the time was like, he got money back for his underwear. Who wants Clinton's underwear?
It's so funny that, like, you know, again, it's like you win and you lose. It's like you get put in the spotlight. Everyone's going to give you a hard time. If you're a politician, you make a bunch of money, of course you're going to get a hard time, right? Mm-hmm. So you're not paying your fair share.
Yeah. I mean, if I can get money back for my underwear, I'm gonna do it. Clinton did it. I can do it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Clinton had attorneys that actually signed off on that.
That's not what he was impeached for.
Yeah. Did you see? No, off topic. Never mind. Impeachment. Not going to talk about it. So that's what we have for our taxable lesson for the day. Again, anyone that's out there that is excited about getting their tax refund back, I would like to know whether or not this is something that you're doing because you're looking forward to that next trip, or is this because you just are trying to catch up? That's good information to know, so we can kind of keep a good gauge on macro factors that are affecting the stock market, right? Like we saw yesterday, a big downturn, and this year or today we saw spike up, and now I think it may be a little flat. I haven't checked since we started filming, but it's these are the kinds of things that you want to think about as you're managing your own money. It's like, why is the market going up? Are there any headwinds that are out there? Are there any things that I noticed with my fellow human beings as to behaviors that I'm noticing in spending patterns or other, to get a good idea of kind of what's going on in the market? Make sense? Great. Well, I'm glad that you all joined me for a tax version of Money in the Bank with Frank, and I look forward to talking to you guys next week. I have a couple of good guests that I'm really looking forward to reaching out to and getting on the show. But until then, we'll see you soon. Hey, you. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Money in the Bank with Frank. If you like that, hit the subscribe button. We have plenty more content like that on the Merge TV, and we look forward to seeing you next time.